Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiti. Om Gnanatimirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya. Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. तस्यावलोकमधिकं कृपयाति घोर तापत्रयोपशमनाय निःसृष्टमक्ष्णोः स्निग्धस्मितानुगुणितं विपुलप्रसादं ध्यायेच्चिरं विपुलभावनया गुहायाम्. The yogi should contemplate with full devotion, the compassionate glances frequently cast by the Lord's eyes, for they soothe the most fearful threefold agonies of his devotees. Tapatraya Upashamana. Tapatraya Upashamana, meaning soothing of the threefold miseries. His glances, accompanied by loving smile, are full of abundant grace. So beautiful. The yogi should contemplate with full devotion the compassionate glances frequently cast by the Lord's eyes, for they soothe the most fearful threefold agonies of his devotees. His glances, accompanied by loving smile, are full of abundant grace. As long as one is in conditional life in the material body, it is natural that he will suffer from anxieties and agonies. So this is the truth of the matter, that we are in conditional life and so we will suffer. You can't escape this. One cannot avoid the influence of material energy even when one is on the transcendental plane. Sometimes disturbances come, but the agonies and anxieties of the devotees are at once mitigated when they think of the Supreme Person of Godhead in his beautiful form or the smiling face of the Lord. It's very clear actually what we need to do when there are disturbances. All we have to do is simply think of the Supreme Person of Godhead in his beautiful form or the smiling face of the Lord. But our challenge is actually when we are disturbed, we forget the Lord. And that is the reason, it is good for grastas, especially in their house. Wherever you see, you should see Krishna. There should be photos, there should be something connected to Krishna. So when we are distressed, if we go into any room of the house, any part of the house, we should be able to see Krishna. Because we don't have natural remembrance of Krishna. But when we see a photo, something of Krishna, then we can remember him. And the same thing at office. Have a photo of Krishna, have wallpapers of Krishna on your computer, have a Krishna ringtone. Basically, because at any point, any moment and every moment, we go through so much of disturbances. And when we do that, all we have to do is simply think about Krishna. Krishna is always smiling. I keep saying, if we have some friend of ours who's very jovial, and we are in some bad state of mind, then we go to that person, and that person starts joking and makes the situation light, and we are also smiling and laughing. So automatically our mood is lightened by being in that person's presence. Similarly, Krishna is Sachidananda Vigraha. He is always happy. All we have to do is simply come in touch with him. And that coming in touch with him could be holy name, could be seeing his beautiful form, remembering his smiling face, hearing about him, whatever it is. It can just make us happy, provided we remember him. The Lord bestows innumerable favors. See, such a short purport, how powerful it is. The Lord bestows innumerable favors upon his devotee. And the greatest manifestation of his grace is his smiling face, which is full of compassion for his pure devotees. Prabhupada specifically has qualified this. He is saying for his pure devotees, not for mixed devotees. Mm. So all we have to try and become is pure in our intentions in doing bhakti. And the Lord will bestow innumerable favors. We don't deserve it, but the Lord will bestow. The greatest manifestation of grace is smiling face. Just have to remember the smiling face of Krishna. That's all. It's a very simple, happy meditation. Krishna's beautiful face. His glances, his eyes, lotus petal like eyes, huge eyeballs, which are full of compassion and love for devotees. We know that even on the material platform, most of the expression of one's inner feelings happens through the face and mostly the eyes. And Krishna just shows his love for his devotees in his eyes. Anyway, so this is so nice. आसंहरेरवन्ताखिललोकतीव्र शोकाश्रुसागरविशोषणम् अत्युदारं सम्मोहनाय रचितं निजमाययास्य भ्रूमण्डलं मुनिकृते मकरध्वजस्य. A yogi should similarly meditate on the most benevolent smile of Lord Sri Hari. A smile which for all those who bow to him, all those who bow to him, dries away the ocean of tears caused by intense grief. Again, benevolent smile. The yogi should also meditate on the Lord's eyebrows, arched eyebrows, which are manifested by his internal potency in order to charm the sex god for the good of the sages. So, benevolent smile and arched eyebrows. Benevolent smile drives away the ocean of tears. Arched eyebrows um, drives away attraction to the opposite sex. The entire universe is full of miseries, and therefore the inhabitants of this material universe are always shedding tears out of intense grief. There is a great ocean of water made from such tears. But for one who surrenders unto the Supreme Person of Godhead, the ocean of tears is at once dried up. One need only see the charming smile of the Supreme Lord. In other words, the bereavement of material existence immediately subsides, and one sees the charming smile of the Lord. It is stated in this verse that the charming eyebrows of the Lord are so fascinating, that they cause one to forget the charms of sense attraction. The conditioned souls are shackled to material existence because they are captivated by the charms of sense gratification, especially sex life. The sex god is called Makaradhwaja. The charming brows of the Supreme Personality of Godhead protect the sages and devotees from being charmed by material lust and sex attraction. Yamanacharya, a great Acharya, said that ever since he had seen the charming pastimes of the Lord, the charms of sex life had become abominable for him. So this is very, very important. And the mere thought of sex enjoyment would cause him to spit and turn his face. Thus, if anyone wants to be aloof from sex attraction, which everybody should, a devotee should, he must see the charming smile and fascinating eyebrows of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the more we are just attracted by the beautiful lotus face of Krishna, the, the attraction to this sex attraction will just go off. And one must know that this has to happen. We have to reach this stage today or tomorrow. One cannot be attracted by the skin. Shankaracharya says that it is just a bag of stool, pus, and urine. Mm. So we should not be attracted by the skin, and especially this sex attraction. Uh, so if we want to protect ourselves, we have to just simply see the charming smile and fascinating eyebrows of Krishna. Mm. ध्यानायनं प्रहसितं बहुलाधरोष्ठ भासारुणायित तनु द्विजकुन्दपङ्क्ति ध्यायेत्स्वदेहकुहरे वसितस्य विष्णोर्भक्त्यार्द्रयार्पितमना न पृथक् दिदृक्ष्येत्. With devotion steep. Steep. What does steep mean? Overflowing. With devotion steeped in love and affection, the yogi should meditate within the core of his heart upon the laughter of Lord Vishnu. The laughter of Vishnu is so captivating that it can be easily meditated upon. When the Supreme Lord is laughing, one can see his small teeth, which resemble jasmine buds, rendered rosy by the splendor of his lips. Once devoting his mind to this, the yogi should no longer desire to see anything else. Mm. See, so even the path of yoga without bhakti will not give the result. That's why saying with devotion steeped in love and affection, yogi should meditate on the laughter of Lord Vishnu. It is recommended that the yogi visualize the laughter of the Lord after studying his smile very carefully. Hmm. So this is a little bit of speculation. That visualize the laughter after studying his smile very carefully. These particular descriptions of meditation on the smile, laughter, face, lips, and teeth all indicate conclusively that God is not impersonal. It is described herein that one should meditate on the laughter or smiling of Vishnu. There is no other activity that can completely cleanse the heart of the devotee. The exceptional beauty of the laughter of Lord Vishnu is that when he smiles, his small teeth, which resemble the buds of jasmine flowers, at once becomes reddish, reflecting his rosy lips. Mm. In school, we used to do rosy lips, teeth within. You can remember Krishna. The yogi is able to place the beautiful face of the Lord in the core of his heart. He will be completely satisfied. In other words, when one is absorbed in seeing the beauty of the Lord within himself, the material attraction can no longer disturb him. See, these purports are all so deep. These words, we have to note these words. Steeped, absorbed. This is bhakti. It doesn't say when one is seeing the beauty of the Lord. Prabhupada is not saying when one is seeing the beauty of the Lord. When one is absorbed in seeing the beauty of the Lord. With devotion in love and affection. No, with devotion steeped in love and affection. So it's not that bhakti is some rasahina process, like some process without any rasa or some dry speculation. No. But the interesting thing is actually to be able to take these things seriously. We should have a liking towards tattva. See, for example, if I don't like philosophy, I will not read this in this with and give it so much attention. I will simply read with devotions. You've been okay. Like it's just like normal English. But when we are interested in actually understanding the mood of the translation, which requires understanding tattva, only then the rasa can be experienced. If we forget this tattva of being steeped, then we can't understand this rasa. So we should understand while the goal is to experience this rasa, the foundation is tattva. Without understanding philosophy, without giving attention to philosophy, without absorbing our minds in philosophy, we cannot come to the stage of absorbing ourselves in the mellows or rasas. And this is important that we read like this, identify these things, because that is what will actually push us down deeper into this process of bhakti. Unfortunately, we made bhakti a very mechanical process. Actually, it's such an involved process. It cannot be done by a machine. It requires a human being with heart to do bhakti. Mm. But tattva is the basis that we should understand. एवं हरौ भगवती प्रतिलब्ध भावो भक्त्या द्रवदृदया उत्पुलकः प्रमोदात् औत्कण्ठ्यभाष्पकलया मुहुरर्ध्यमानस् तच्चापि चित्तबडिशं कनकैर्वियुङ्क्ते. By following this course, the yogi gradually develops pure love for the Supreme Person of Godhead, Hari. In the course of his progress in devotional service, the hairs on his body stand erect through excessive joy and is constantly bathed in a stream of tears occasioned by intense love. God is so powerful. This is the progress we have to make. Hairs on our body should stand erect because of excessive joy. And we should be constantly bathed in a stream of tears due to intense love. But if we have love for this material world, we can't develop love for Krishna. We have intense love for this material world, but we should have intense love for Krishna. Gradually, even the mind which he used as a means to attract the Lord, as one attracts a fish to a hook, withdraws from material activity. So even the mind will withdraw from material activity. Here it is clearly mentioned that meditation, which is an action of the mind, is not the perfect stage of samadhi or absorption. In the beginning, the mind is employed in attracting the form of the Supreme Person of Godhead. In the higher stages, there is no question of using the mind. A devotee becomes accustomed to serving the Supreme Lord by purification of his senses. In other words, the yoga principles of meditation are required as long as one is not situated in pure devotional service. The mind is used to purify the senses, but when the senses are purified by meditation, there is no need to sit in a particular place and try to meditate upon the form of the Lord. One becomes so habituated that he automatically engages in the personal service of the Lord. When the mind forcibly is engaged upon the form of the Lord, this is called nirbija yoga or lifeless yoga. For the yogi does not automatically engage in the personal service of the Lord. But when he is constantly thinking of the Lord, that is called sabija yoga or living yoga. One has to be promoted to the platform of living yoga. And so the point here is that in this whole Ashtanga yoga, there is no aspect of practical service. So Prabhupada is saying that once initially the mind is used for meditation, then um, by meditation the mind is used to purify the senses. So senses become purified, and when the senses are purified, there is no need to sit in a particular place and meditate. When the senses are purified, Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam, automatically the senses become habituated to engage in the person service of the Lord. So if we are actually making progress in any form of yoga, is that we should lovingly serve Krishna, lovingly serve Krishna. That shows that we are making progress, not grudgingly, right? And that also shows the extent of purification of our senses. If we are serving Krishna, not withstanding our material problems, our bodily problems, our mental problems, our financial problems, our relationship problems. If we are fixed on serving Krishna, that is means that the senses are purified. So irrespective of what our external state of affairs, material affairs, we should continue to do devotional service with love for Guru, for Krishna. That is beyond samadhi. When the mind forcibly is engaged upon the form of the Lord, his bija, so we have to come to sabija, which is living yoga, meaning engaging in active devotional service. One should engage in the service of the Lord 24 hours a day, as confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. Now, please note that this service doesn't actually mean our definition of service. And sadhana is also part of this service that is being referred to here, because chanting the holy names of Krishna is the first service. Kavanam Kirtanam. The stage of Premanjana Churita can be attained by developing complete love. When one's love for the Supreme Person of Godhead in devotional service is fully developed, one always sees the Lord, even without artificially meditating on his form. His vision is divine because he has no other engagement. At this stage of spiritual realization, it is not necessary to engage the mind artificially. Initially, the mind is artificially engaged, but as we make progress, there is no necessity to engage the mind artificially. Since the meditation recommended in the lower stages is a means to come to the platform of devotional service, those already engaged in devotional transcendental loving service to the Lord are above such meditation. The stage of perfection is called Krishna consciousness. Very powerful. Stage of Premanjana Churita can be attained by developing complete love. Okay. That means that there will be tears in the eyes when we develop complete love. When one's love is fully developed, one always sees the Lord. Okay. This also we understand. Without artificially meditating. Okay. So we actually see the Lord. Okay. His vision is divine because he has no other engagement. Okay. At this stage of spiritual realization, it is not necessary to engage the mind artificially. Hmm. Then the meditation recommended in the lower stages is a means to come to the platform of devotional service. Those already engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord are above such meditation. Hmm. So by chanting Hare Krishna, we can actually come to this platform of love. And when we are engaged in transcendental loving service, there is no need for meditation. Then there is active service. Okay, I have to do a little more. This is a lot more deeper, I think. More such meditation. Hmm. Engage the mind artificially. Okay. Hmm. I'm thinking there is something more deeper here. I'm not able to get to it. Okay, let me contemplate on. Muktashrayam yarhi nirvishayam viraktam nirvanam richati manah sahasayatarchi यथार्चिः आत्मानम् अत्र पुरुषो व्यवधानमेकम् अन्वीक्षते प्रतिनिवृत गुणप्रवाहः. And the mind is thus completely freed from all material contamination and detached from material objectives. It is just like the flame of a lamp. At that time, the mind is actually dovetailed with that of the Supreme Lord and is experienced as one with Him because it is freed from the interactive flow of the material qualities. Nirvishayam, nirvishayam, detached from sense objects. In the material world, the activities of the mind are acceptance and rejection. As long as the mind is in the material consciousness, it must be forcibly trained to accept meditation on the Supreme Person of Godhead. But when one is actually elevated to the loving the Supreme Lord, the mind is automatically absorbed in thought of the Lord. Hmm. In such a position, a yogi has no other thought than to serve the Lord. Okay, this is the key. This dovetailing of the mind with the desires of the Supreme Person of Godhead is called nirvana, or making the mind one with the Supreme Lord. So this is the point, right? Dhyana, by dhyana or Shravanam Kirtanam, right? Once one is elevated to the loving the Supreme Lord, then Manmana Bhava Bhakta, the mind is automatically absorbed in thought of the Lord. And the mind is automatically absorbed in thought of the Lord, one engages in service of the Lord naturally. This is spontaneous. So there is spontaneity in this engaging in service. And that spontaneity increases to the extent of our absorption in thought of the Lord, which depends on the extent of love we have developed for the Lord. The best example of nirvana is cited in Bhagavad Gita. In the beginning, the mind of Arjuna deviated from Krishna's. Krishna wanted Arjuna to fight, but Arjuna did not want to. So there was disagreement. But after hearing Bhagavad Gita from the Supreme Person of Godhead, Arjuna dovetailed his mind with Krishna's desire. This is called oneness. In Bhagavatam, somewhere else, I think next chapter maybe. One who's not aligned with the Lord is called a separatist. Separatist means that he's separate. There's no oneness. Oneness means this alignment of the devotee, alignment of the devotee's desires with the desires of the Guru, with the desires of Krishna. This is alignment, oneness. If there is no oneness, it's called separatist. Separatist attitude, meaning we want to remain separate, we want to remain independent, we want to have our own thoughts, we want to have our own path, we want to have our own goal, separate from what is given by Guru and previous acharyas. This oneness, however, did not cause Arjuna and Krishna to lose their individualities. The Mayavadi philosophers cannot understand this. They think that oneness necessitates loss of individuality. Actually, however, we find in Bhagavad Gita that individuality is not lost. When the mind is completely purified in love of God, the mind becomes the mind of the Supreme Person of Godhead. So beautiful. When the mind is completely purified, the mind becomes the mind of the Supreme Lord. The mind at that time does not act separately, nor does it act without inspiration to fulfill the desire of the Lord. The individual related soul has no other activity. Pati nivritta guna pravaha. In the conditioned state, the mind is always engaged in activity impelled by the three modes of material world. But in the transcendental state, the material modes cannot disturb the mind of the devotee. The material modes cannot disturb the mind of the devotee. As reading Leelamrita, and it's so clear. Prabhupada, wherever he was completely transcendental, irrespective of what environment he was in, what kind of, Bowery, Lower East Side, all fallen places, right? But his mind was just never disturbed. The devotee has no other concern than to satisfy the desires of the Lord, because he was all the time meditating on how to fulfill the desire of his spiritual master. This is the highest stage of perfection called nirvana or nirvana mukti. At this stage, the mind becomes completely free from material desire. Completely free. There should not be even an iota of material desire. Yatharchihi. Archihi means flame. When a lamp is broken or the oil is finished, we see that the flame of the lamp goes out. But according to scientific understanding, the flame is not extinguished, it is conserved. This is conservation of energy. Similarly, when the mind stops functioning on the material platform, it is conserved in the activities of the Supreme Lord. The Mayavadi philosopher's conception of cessation of the functions of the mind is explained here. Cessation of the mental functions means cessation of activities conducted under the influence of the three modes of material nature. Right, so this is cessation of activities conducted under the influence of three. So it's not that the mental functions will stop. The mental functions will, like the mind becomes the mind of the Supreme Lord. So it's completely spiritualized. And there's no material desire at all. Mind is completely spiritualized. Okay, I'll stop here. Any questions, comments? Anything? Anybody?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Just like during reading, you said like when you're in tension, you should think of the smiling face of the Lord, more, concentrate more. But usually, like I seen, like when we are in tension, we try to blame the Lord. Or the first thing which goes, you don't want to chant, and you think, oh, you've done enough of. I mean, of course, there's not enough of service or something, but then you think you've done enough of it, and then why you are at the receiving end? This is always a question everybody beginners ask. We are in Krishna consciousness. We ask. I mean, this is a repetitive question which comes. So I mean, and we know the answer is that we have to try, and the Lord is not the supply, the supplier. It is our karma, and we have to forcefully And every time we in Krishna conscious. And like I keep telling you this, Prabhu, like I've seen Dayaram Prabhu and I've seen his wife, like what they've gone through, like not for a moment, like did she waver from it. I mean, and now like when recently SK Jain passed away and I went to pay my condolences to his wife. I mean, like if you see her, you'll think she's a model. She's a, like she's so much into material. Every moment she said, no, Krishna must have had better plans. I know, like he's gone back to Gadri. He was preaching to so many persons. It is Krishna's will. Like not, she was crying, but she was not blaming the Lord. So, we have to make our roots strong, like, Prabhu. I
Yeah.
mean, yes, this is we have to force ourselves to see the smiling face of the Lord. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah. No, in fact, actually, philosophically, it's the other way around. Actually, we've done worse, and Krishna is so merciful that he's giving us only a glimpse of our suffering. So actually, blaming means we are actually in ignorance. Actually, we should remember saying that actually I should have suffered more. Krishna is so merciful that he's giving me just a little, and that love, that compassion he's showing towards us, we will just realize when we look at the face of the Lord, and he's smiling, he's saying, "Don't worry, I'm here with you. You've done nonsense in your previous life. Unfortunately, you have to go through it. I'm not happy with that. I'm not happy seeing your suffering. I want you to come out of it. I want you to become more dear to me." Right? So when we see the beautiful face of the Lord, we suddenly remember, okay, this is what it is. This is the reality. Right? It's not what we are thinking. What we are thinking is just illusion. It's ignorance. So whether we like it or not, just that is why I said, it's just that we should plaster our home. It's like, instead of paint, just paint it with Krishna, right? Wherever we see, whether we like it or not, we should be seeing. And it just becomes a habit. After some time, whenever we see the smiling face of the Lord, the only thing thought comes to my mind is, who is a person who does bad to us and smiles? He's a villain, right? A villain is a person who does bad to us and is still happy, smiling. Is able to just keep a smile on his face. So if we look at Krishna and we are seeing him smiling and we think that he is doing something wrong, that he is the cause for our suffering, then he becomes a villain. And Krishna is far from that. So as soon as we see Krishna's smiling face, immediately we should remember this is his compassion. How can he be doing something wrong for us? He's as much or more pained than us when we are suffering. We should remember this. He's our father. Parents are not happy seeing their children suffer. And Krishna is not happy, but he wants us to come out. And he's helping us. He's reducing our suffering. He's giving a helping hand. He's showing us the path. He's given Shastra. He's given Hare Krishna Mahamantra. He's even given, for other people who have difficulties, he's given sciences like Jyotish Shastra, medical science he's given all this to help us come out of our suffering because we've done nonsense. I met one astrologer uh, who actually, he will look at your chart and tell you what nonsense we have done in our past life because of which we are suffering. He actually tells exactly one, two, three sins that you've done because of which you're suffering. And when I heard this about, something had gone, and mm, when I heard that graphic description of the sin that person had done in the past, I thought, oh my God, I mean, in spite of this, the devotee, that person is still alive. That person is still seeing some happiness in life. And I thought, like, this is just simply, and of course, connected to devotion. That person is connected to devotion. So I was thinking, Lord is so merciful that in spite of so much nonsense a person has done in one life, Krishna is still helping. Krishna is still minimizing the suffering. Krishna is still showing the path out. And I was thinking how merciful Krishna is. Just because, maybe we've done little devotion for him. So it's completely opposite actually. It's completely opposite. And we cannot forget this actually. We'll, what is the word? Ingrate. We become ingrate, meaning we no gratitude towards Lord for what He's done. Ingrateful. Right? So we should always remember we've done nonsense. Actually, the amount of suffering that we are going through is nothing really compared to the kind of sins that we have committed done in our life. And that's the only reason we are suffering. And Krishna's smile reminds us of the reality. Okay. Anything else? Anybody? Okay. We'll stop here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Pancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu bheva patitanam pavane vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananda Koti Vaishnava.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat
Hare Krishna.
pranam.